Hello everyone, good morning. Just sort out the music. I think we're good. Hello, good morning. Welcome to Kitchen Live with me, Lou from Crumbs and Corkscrews. Fingers crossed. I think we have all our technical difficulties ironed out. So hopefully you can hear me and you can see me. And we're all in this together. Happy Sunday. If you're new to the channel, I am Lou from Crumbs and Corkscrews. You're either watching live on Facebook, on YouTube, or you're catching up on the replay. Let me know where you are in the world in the comments. I've had so many responses from last week's Kitchen Live, which was the first one back after a very long time. And I'm really excited for this morning's version, recipe, whatever we're doing. It's been one of them mornings already. I'm going to get this right. We're going to do Halloween Oreo Bat Cupcakes. And as usual, we just give a minute or two, let everybody come in, sit down. I hope you've still got your PJs on and you've got a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and you're just relaxing. If you're in the UK, I hope you've enjoyed that extra hour in bed. I did wake up at stupid o'clock this morning and then went, I've got another hour back to sleep. And remember, the phone will do it automatically. The oven you might need to do, these work off the phone, and all the other bits and pieces, get the instructions out and just leave the car one, because in 6 months' time it will go back again. It's too complicated to do. But we're going to get stuck in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 seconds, and we're going to be making, I've got some already made, some cupcakes with these little cute dudes on, these little bat Oreos. I'm loving them. I made some last night. Let's not waste any time and get stuck back in. My little doofer thing that I use to move between the different screens on my phone still isn't working. So you just have to bear with whilst I move between the screens. But today, as I say, we're going to be making these guys. I'm gonna keep getting this right. I'm gonna be making Halloween bat cupcakes, and they are super easy. The bats are super cute in my opinion, and you can do so much. And it's Halloween tomorrow, but you could make these any time of the year if you're a bit of a bat fanatic. And the Oreo cupcake recipe is already up on the website from a previous live stream, but we're going to tweak this a little bit and make it a little bit more darker for Halloween. So the recipe I'm going to be making today makes around 12 to 16 cupcakes. Depends how big your cupcake cases are. You could do fairy cakes, you could do big muffins or whatever. But these would be about 12 to 16 cupcakes. As I say, they're really easy to make. So this is definitely a beginner skill level. They've got that really classic cookies and cream taste going on there. And we can be adding a dark cocoa powder so you get even more of that Oreo chocolatey taste through there. The pros, I mean, these are great to make with the kids. Even the cake side of things, they can get stuck in and do that. I know my nephews love baking and getting stuck into cakes. They made a lemon cake. I think it was a lemon cake this half term, and sent me a picture of this amazing layered drizzly cake. So this is great for doing with the kids, and they love making the Oreo bats. My cons is, as always, you have to share them, but maybe that's a pro. Maybe sharing your bakes and your cupcakes and your treats is sharing the love. Maybe that's a bit of a pro there. But you can make them today and they'll be ready for tomorrow for trick-or-treaters if you want to give them something special, if you're having a Halloween party tonight or tomorrow. So this is our recipe. Let's jump in one moment to our ingredients. So this looks quite a long list. Don't be put off. We've got lots of bits and pieces in here, but we are using this recipe is for the 12 to 16 as usual, because it's just Ian and myself here. I am scaling this down and I'm doing a half version of this recipe, so it's really easy to split this and size down if you only want to make a half batch or a small batch, and it's easy to size up as well, just double, triple, etc., however many you want. So we've got to start off with 400 grams of unsalted butter. This is not all going in the cake. Half of it's going in the cakes and half of it is going in your buttercream. I've weighed mine all out in one and we'll split it out. So that's your butter. And then we're also going to be using just 200 grams of caster sugar. This is just plain white caster sugar, nothing fancy. We don't want to use a dark sugar or a brown sugar or a golden sugar here because that will bring a caramelly sort of tone to the flavor, and we don't want that to take over our classic cookies and cream flavor. So we're just going with a regular plain white caster sugar or a superfine caster sugar. You'll need, as always, some eggs, and they need to be at room temperature. I say this every recipe all the time when we're baking. Get your ingredients out, get them at room temperature, especially your eggs. They whip up easily, they incorporate more air. That protein within the whites works really well then with all our other bits and pieces and the chemical reactions that are going on in the oven. I have just posted recently a post a bit more around the baking basics series on the website about why your ingredients really need to be at room temperature, and it does matter, especially if it asks you to do it in the recipe. So they're your eggs. Then, as always, we're going to pop in a little bit of vanilla extract. This is a homemade one, but you can buy, obviously, vanilla extract. We're using self-raising flour today because I've got quite a lot of it that I need to use. Susan, what size eggs? Medium. Medium eggs. Small ones tend to be a little bit too small. If you can do medium, perfect. If you've got large, then I would drop it down a size. So if it's 4 eggs, I'd use 3. And if they're small, I'd up it by 1. So again, if it's 4 eggs, I'd use 5. But most eggs now, if you're sort of, depends if you've got chickens at home or you're buying from the store. Most of the ones from the stores tend to be medium now. But yeah, the other alternative is you can weigh them out. So whatever you have of your butter and your sugar, sort of those individual weights, so 200 grams, you'd weigh it out with your eggs there. And a medium egg tends to be sort of about 50 grams. So 50 grams, 4 eggs, 200 grams of butter, 200 grams of flour, etc. Hope that makes sense. Thank you. I am going to be doing an egg post as well. I've got all these baking basics things coming up. So yes, we're using self-raising flour today, which already has the raising agents in it because I have a lot that I need to get through. I am also just going to add an extra little bit of baking powder in there just to give it a rise. You can use plain flour or all-purpose flour, and you would double up how much baking powder you use. I will detail that in the recipe. But self-raising flour, most of us in the UK use that, but yeah. We then have a little bit of fine sea salt if you're using unsalted butter. The salt just brings out that taste a little bit. And again, there's a post around unsalted and salted butter and why I add a little bit of salt if I'm using unsalted. It just helps bring all out those flavors. Key thing today, Oreos. Obviously, our bats are made out of Oreos. I've already crushed mine for my buttercream and my cake mixture. This is a packet, 150 grams of Oreos in here. You'll need however many Oreos plus more to make your bats. I completely forgot what they were. So for 2 bats, that's 3 Oreos. You'll need 1 for the wings and 2 for the bodies. So I think I've said about 28 there. You can use normal Oreos, which we've got for here. You could use some of the flavored ones. And also, don't forget, cost of living and all of that. You can get store brand own versions. And these are cookies and cream. These are the Aldi ones. And they're significantly cheaper. So they're really good, especially if you eat them whilst you're making things. You'll also need for the buttercream some icing sugar. We've got that in a bag because it gets everywhere. Just standard regular icing sugar. a little bit of chocolate. This has been melted once for making those, so I've got a little bit left over, but we're going to melt a little bit of chocolate to hold our bats together. And then anything you like to put on top, you know, you've got sort of sprinkles. You can get the little, oops, you're up there, the little eyes. These are from Sprinkly, or you can make these with a little bit of sugar paste or a little, like a sugar pearl sprinkle. I've got all sorts here as well, which I might use. I've got some, this is a spooktacular mix. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's like pink strands, black stars. I've got some little bones, and these I've had, these were from Asda. These are called Horrid Hundreds and Thousands, and they're just black and white. So we might use those, but you'll need something for your eyes as well. Equipment wise, obviously your cupcake pan, make sure it's a nice deep one. These are about 1 inch deep. This will hold your cupcakes as they bake rather than falling out. So like an old style fairy tin, we want a nice deep pan there. I've got some baking parchment on there. I can't remember why I put that on there. We don't actually need it. Your mini chopper or food processor for chopping up your Oreos, which we've already done. Stand mixer or hand mixer. Today I'm going to be using the KitchenAid. It is over here at the moment, just because I can let that go and I can keep doing things for you guys. A large mixing bowl if you're using a hand mixer, a small mixing bowl for melting your chocolate in, and then all the usual rubber spatulas, angled palette knives, lots of spoons, lots and lots of spoons. And if you're piping, if you want to pipe, you will need obviously a piping bag and nozzle. So that's our equipment list. Let's get stuck in, otherwise we'll be here till Halloween talking about all the exciting things we're going to do. I'm going to whack that over to full screen and we'll get going. Right, I'm going to put some things to one side, which is my cupcake pan at the moment. We'll get the oven preheated shortly. That doesn't take too long. But if your oven does take a little while to preheat up, you want it to be about 180 degrees C, 350 Fahrenheit. We're going to be doing it in the bottom one. If you've got any hot spots in your oven that you know about, remember you can turn your cakes around as well. So let's get this bad boy plugged in and we can get started. You won't believe all the cables and stuff that are off camera. It's one of them things. It's due a service as well. So you can use a stand mixer, you can use a hand mixer if you prefer. Like I said last week, I've got my new Breville one, which has got the heat soft element in it, which is great if your butter's not up to temperature. But I'm using my KitchenAid with the paddle attachment on. Like I said, my butter is all in one at the moment, so we need to measure this out. If you're doing the full recipe, then you want to make sure it's 200 grams of butter at this point. I'm doing half, so I'm just going to take off 100 grams. There we go, and leave that for my buttercream shortly. Just put that over there, and then into that I'm going to add my caster sugar. Now the butter has been at room temperature. Actually, it's been out overnight because it was really warm yesterday here. It was absolutely lovely, but really weird for this time of year. It was really warm, so my butter is nice and soft. We're going to cream these together now until they're really light and pale, and people describe it as fluffy as well. It's almost like a thick, creamy texture. So having your butter soft at that point is great because it helps. I'm going to start that going. I'm going to move it to the side so it doesn't get hopefully too noisy. So this starts on low, and that butter and that sugar is combining together. It's really squeaky, this KitchenAid at the moment. It's due its service, a bit like a car. And now I'm just going to up it. And it can be really tempting to go, oh yeah, that looks like it's mixed together, I'll stop now. But you do want to take it as far as you can so it's really smooth, thick, creamy, and is that pale colour. It's easier to see that if you're using more yellow butter like an Anchor butter or a Country Life here in the UK. But that shouldn't take long. Into that then I'm going to add my eggs. I've got 4, I'm going to be using 2 eggs. Remember, I'm doing a half measure. I'm just going to take those out there. Stay, don't move. And just pop them to one side. And they are medium eggs. Just going to take that up a slight notch. This is where a stand mixer comes in really great, because you can just leave it doing whilst you do other bits and pieces. And I'm going to get my rubber spatula. We're going to have a scrape down of this in a moment. Let's just take that up. This is the noisy bit. Sorry. If you're using something like a baking spread, like Stork or margarine, or a plant-based spread that isn't a block like a butter, when you do this, you want to be careful. You don't want to over mix it, because they contain a lot of water content and it will slacken really easy. So I'm mixing this quite a bit at the moment because my butter has that higher fat content there, and the cream. But with anything like a spread or a mix, just be careful how far you take that, otherwise you'll end up with it being quite runny. I'm just going to show you guys. Just going to give it a little bit of a scrape down, but nice big thick, almost like a solid cream. It doesn't look like butter anymore. And then I'm going to add my eggs one at a time now. Hopefully no shell in there. Let's get one out. Just going to pop that back on and start slowly. Also, when you're doing this at this point, if your eggs are room temperature, when you add them to that butter and sugar mixture, you minimize that risk of curdling. You might have noticed when you add the eggs previously when you've been baking that mixture can sometimes look a little curdly, split out. It's fine. Don't panic about that. You can just add a teaspoon of the flour at that point and it'll help rebind it. But having the eggs at a room temperature just stops that shocking of the cold temperature of the eggs into now the room temperature of our ingredients. So that's our first one added. And I find usually when I curdle it up, it's when I add the next one. So the first one looks all right, and then the second one looks a bit eek. Let's pop that in and mix that through. Got my hot water there as always. And just whilst that's doing its thing, just mixing through, I'm going to put that on medium speed. I'm going to set my oven temperature. I've got everything in this oven today. Let's just move some things around. Anybody else sort of use ovens as storage? So this is at 180 degrees C. And that's a fan. I've been playing now with this oven for 18 months since we moved in. And I found even at 180, I could drop it a little bit. It depends what I'm baking, but 180 with this circulation on this one is just right. So whilst that's heating, we can finish off our cupcakes. And what I have now is my eggy mixture. So it looks a wetter version of what we had before, but it's not liquid. So into here then, I've just thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to add my flour. and my baking powder. And actually, because I'm adding a little bit of baking powder, that's half a teaspoon on this one. I'm just going to do that. You can sieve it together. I did sieve my flour last night. This flour is super fine. So I'm just going to start this off by hand, because otherwise when I put it in here, you get a big cloud of flour. So into here is, see, you see, I don't know if you see that on the camera, but it's smoking because this flour is so fine. So that's my flour in with my baking powder. And this then is, let's do first, apologies, my Oreo crumbs. So again, I've done this for my buttercream, and my scales have gone. No, sorry, not working today. So I crushed my Oreos last night, in the mini chopper, and it was a whole packet, so it was 150 grams of Oreos. And I'm going to use 50 in here, and then the other 100 grams in my buttercream. So and that is when you crush them, that's with the cream. There's no need to take that center out at all. Just put it all in, and we get that cookies and cream flavor. Remember when I said last week when we did the crust for the cheesecake, you want to get it fine, sandy texture. Again, the same here. Doesn't necessarily matter for the cake, but when we put it in the buttercream and we want to pipe it, we don't want big chunks that we're having to try and force out. So I'm just going to put that over there. So that's our cookies. And then finally is our cocoa powder. Now you can use regular cocoa powder, but this here is dark cocoa powder or intense cocoa powder. And it's what they use to make Oreos. You can get it. You might be able to get it in supermarkets now. I've got this on Amazon. I can link to it below. You might have seen, if you've been watching Bake Off, not last week's, because this week was custard week, the previous week with Halloween week, Dawn made her piñata was a black cat, and she said, I'm using the dark cocoa powder to get that black look to it. And that's exactly what this is. And that will give us a really deep, dark color to our cupcakes for Halloween. And because they're Oreos, it doesn't stain, but it's a lot darker. So if you get it on your hands, you get black streaks. So we'll put that in there. And I've just remembered, we want a little dash of our vanilla extract. Teaspoon is all you need. So that's a capful for me. And swap my hands. The oven is heating up nicely. And then, like I say, with my spatula, I'm just going to start mixing this all together just to cut down on that poof that's going to go up when I put it on the mixer. And we'll do the same with our buttercream. So I'm going to put that on, and you might find that if you want to, if your mixture's a bit too thick, you can add a drop of milk. So I'm just going to get some out of the fridge whilst that mixes up. I don't know if I'll need it for this, but I'm just going to add a dribble, and it just helps loosen it a little bit. It's not anything that you need to do, but it does help loosen it. But we will need this for the buttercream as well. Don't over mix this at this point, otherwise you'll be stretching those gluten strands too much. So just make sure it's mixed well combined is what I say, and then you can give it a scrape down. There we go. Ooh. I love the smell of this cocoa powder. It is pretty much an Oreo. But like I say, you don't have to use this. You can use a regular cocoa powder. The recipe for Oreo cupcakes that's already on the website is doesn't actually have any cocoa powder in. I'm going to pop that in the sink because we're going to need that for our buttercream shortly. Just give that a final fold in with our spatula and move that out of the way for the moment. Okay, so we've got our cupcake mix and we've got our oven preheating. So the next thing we need to do is not knock everything off, but get our cupcakes into our cupcake pan. I'm just going to use regular cupcake cases, but you can, not that one because it's squashed. I'll use that for greasing things later. It's good. These are good for paper. But these are just regular cupcake cases, sort of an inch or so, I think about 1.5 inches deep. But you can get spooky ones, Halloween, black ones, white ones, gold ones, silver ones, all sorts. Just make sure they're the deep ones, not the fairy cake sort of style, our old school fairy cake style. And I've put 6 in here, but looking at this, I might get a little bit more out of this. We shall see. Now, what you can do is if you've got some cookies, Oreos left over from your, when you make your bats, remember, don't put them all in. What I quite like to do is just pop one in the bottom of each of my cupcake cases. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but this will bake in, so you'll get this lovely little Oreo base. I've done 8 at the moment now, we shall see. And for then measuring out, you can use just a normal teaspoon, tablespoon, but what I like to use is one of these. And Ian's fixed it. No, he hasn't. I think he might have done. Is old-fashioned cookie scoop. You can use any cookie scoop. This is a 2-inch diameter, 5 centimeter diameter, and one of those, a good scoop of that, and into your case is going to be just right. And this will also give you an even sort of size to all your cupcakes. So they're about the same size. I'm going to get more out of this than I'm expecting. I have been in contact with Canon about that. Apparently it's standard. So we're just filling up our cupcakes. It's odd. Apparently if you don't, it's like a time-saving function, but if you don't touch the camera, but there's no, like, I've never touched camera, please don't ever turn off. You can do it for a maximum of 30 minutes. Crazy. Trying not to get my dress as well in this. Let's go. I'm not a big Halloween person myself, but I don't like the scary side of things. Like when we went to Florida many years ago, Halloween time, we had the choice of going to like the Fright Night at Universal or Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, and that's where I went. I went trick-or-treating at Disney instead. Much less scary in my opinion. So I have actually got 8 good cupcakes out of that. I've got a little bit of batter left in there. It's not going to be a full cake, so I'm not going to put an Oreo in there, but I'm just going to scrape out that. Let's get these in. Come on. This one is, I think anything with cocoa powder and chocolate's messy. I love it, but it just gets too messy for me. I'm just going to use a teaspoon. Oh, I might have had enough actually to put a cookie in the bottom. That'll be our tester. That'll be the one that I know has got nothing in the bottom. We can use that as our tester. So there we go. They smell amazing at the moment, and if I didn't need the bowl, I'd be saving it because Ian would have that as a eat the what's that thing? Cake batter. That extra hour in bed, it's thrown me a little bit. I'm just going to put a little bit more water in there so we can rinse our bowl. Let's just move some things out of the way. There we go. And these are now going to go in the oven, which is preheated. Yes, 180 degrees C, 350 Fahrenheit. These are going to go in for about 16, 18 minutes, maybe 20. We're going to check them, make sure they're springy, spongy on the top. So those are going in. And let's set some time. Let's set it for 17 in a minute, halfway. Great. So just going to have a little wipe down and she'll have a wash up. Sorry, ladies and gents, this is the bit that to do the clean down before the next bit. We're going to get our buttercream on first because we want to get our butter nicely whipped up. So I'm just going to, sorry, you can hear all the washing up noise there. Let's just rinse that off. Get a clean tea towel. Have a coffee break. An interlude while we wash up. So this time, instead of using the paddle attachment, we're going to be using the balloon whisk that we'd use for you typically use your bitter for whisking sort of eggs, meringue, cream, like we did last week with the cheesecake. And I'm going to use it because I do, again, like we've just done with the butter on that one, want to get our butter nice and whipped and airy for this version. So I'm just going to move my little guys over there as well. And again, this is a really easy buttercream to make. You just have to have a little bit of patience with the butter. So let's look at our buttercream then. We split half our buttercream into the cupcakes. We're now going to use the rest for the recipe. I'm making a full batch this time because I want the Oreo buttercream for something else as well. So this is 200 grams of butter again, room temperature, softened. And when I say room temperature, I don't want you, if you think about when you hold the butter, or if you like holding butter, but if you're chopping it and you've got it in your hand, when you cube it, that it's soft to the surface, your fingers aren't going into it, you're not pushing in. So for example, if you've got your block of butter and you put your finger into the top, it should make an indentation. It shouldn't feel overly greasy. Butter will feel greasy because obviously the nature of what it is, but it won't feel liquidy greasy or anything like that. And your finger shouldn't go all the way through. You should be able to leave an indentation. If it's too soft, that's when things can become a bit greasy, a bit oily, those sort of things that we don't want them to be. But yeah, so all we're going to do first is whip our buttercream up. So it's our butter in our stand mixer bowl. Again, you can do this with a hand mixer. If you have got a stand mixer for this, I really urge you to use it, because we want to just take our butter on its own, really. It's just going to sit there and whisk up. Now, start on low speed, because the butter will congeal and do buttery things, and it will all look like a big lump, which mine does already. But as we're going to gradually increase that speed up, we're going to be taking our butter to a very similar texture to what we did for our cupcakes. So it's light, it's smooth, it's creamy, it's thick and spreadable. So this is going to start off then. It will start sort of coming together on the paddle, on the balloon whisk. I'm just going to give that a moment, and then I will stop and scrape it down. Because mine's all just gone into the balloon, but it will come out. Oh, no, there it goes. It will do its own thing. It will do its own thing. And then I'm going to increase. We will, like I say, we'll give it a scrape down in a minute. We're then going to add, bit by bit, our icing sugar. Now, I tend to go, I've got a rogue bit of butter just flown up the side that I want to get back in. Let's just get that, let's give that a quick. So at the moment, it just looks like very thick butter. But I've just got a few things up the side, so I'm just going to give it a scrape back down. Now, some recipes call for just adding it all in, and you can add it all in and do it all at once if you prefer. I do like to do this with my butter and just get it to this nice whippy texture. I find that when I pipe it and when I eat it, it's just a nicer consistency. Piping it, it's really nice to handle. What you want with a buttercream is something that's nice and smooth, not something you've got to squeeze on that bag, because if you squeeze, then your nozzle comes out the end and it feels really quite heavy and dense, and it's maybe not too much of a pleasant eating experience. So by whipping the butter first, not only are you loosening it out, so when you add the icing sugar in, it just is a nice consistency. But a bit like when you whisk the eggs, you're incorporating a little bit of air into there. It's not going to have the same effect as when you have the air in there for baking when things rise, but it does give you a nicer flavour and doesn't feel as dense. So this is almost there. I'm just going to take that up a little bit. We'll get our icing sugar ready. I don't weigh this out. It just makes an absolute mess otherwise. I'll show you what I do. That is looking spot on. So remember when I said when we're making the cake batter, it's a light colour. Again, that's what we're looking for here. And it almost looks like a whipped cream. I'm just going to pop that there because it will go back on. Let's give that a scrape down and you can see it a little bit. It should be nice and spreadable. It'd be that sort of texture that's perfect for spreading on toast. So this is our butter consistency. Probably with the lights it's not great, but that's what we have. And it is just really easy. There's no, I'm not having to fight it or anything with the butter. That's what we want it to be. So, icing sugar, the bane of the baker's life. I'm just going to get a little cup to help us measure it out. Whatever you put of butter, I tend to double of icing sugar. So 200 grams of butter 400 grams of icing sugar. The temptation is to add it all at once. And if you add it all at once, it can again become really thick, heavy, claggy. So I tend to do this. If you've got patience, do it by the tablespoon. If you haven't got patience, do it in like a quarter. So that's 50 grams there. You might then also find that you need your milk. Again, the milk is entirely optional. You could use a plant-based milk if you don't want this milk, but you've got butter in there. We won't go into plant-based buttercreams. It's a whole new world, and there's some amazing people out there that do that. Little blog of vegan, if you want to check her out, if you're plant-based. So I'm just going to add a spoon of milk at this point as well, just for me to help out. And before I put this back on, I'm just going to fold that icing sugar in just quickly, a bit like we did with the flour, just because it gets everywhere. Just going to pop that back on. And just whisk that up so they're combined. Just put my towel here, shouldn't I, for my hands. That first one doesn't normally take very long. It is a little bit of a on and off sort of session here, but it's worth it. I'm actually going to add this. I realised we need 400 grams, so 50 grams wasn't a lot. So I'm going to add 100 grams at this point. Do another couple of 100 grams and then 100, and then my last one. So that's 150 grams so far. Fold that in. We haven't added the Oreo powder just yet. We just want to get this ready to a base. You'll notice, if you think it'll look a little bit crumbly, just add a drop of milk. It doesn't need to be a huge amount. You can see it's holding up on my thing. So it's 150. I lost, my maths has gone out the window today. 150, so I've got another 250 to add in, 400 grams. There we go. Cupcakes are doing well. Let's just have a quick check on them. They've got 5 minutes left. Up we go. And by doing this and scraping down, it means that we can get to that icing sugar as well that maybe languishes in the bottom as you are mixing through. So that's always, it's always good to get that off. So 100. There we go. And we'll add our thing. So what's that? 250. I'm going to add another 100 after this, and then the last 50 I'm going to add in with my Oreos. Like I say, how you'd like to split this up is entirely up to you, but you don't have to do it in these quantities. You can, I mean, if you want to, if time is of the essence, you can just dump everything in. But this, I find, gives you a nicer, smoother texture to your buttercream. Cool. So just see a little bit left at the bottom there. Give it a scrape down. My last 100, and then my 50 and my Oreo crumbs. There we go. Another splash of milk. Doesn't sit in there. Oops. And And we mix through. Like I say, just make sure you've got no pockets of icing sugar at the bottom. Get it all mixed in. Now, this cupcake, this frosting that we're going to make is quite a heavy on the Oreo front. We've got quite a lot of crumbs to add in. The one on the website you'll find doesn't use that much Oreo crumb. It's entirely up to you. Obviously, for Halloween, we're upping this a little bit, getting that colour through. Just going to do a whip. And when you're doing this, you're looking for that really nice, spreadable consistency. And by doing this, you can gauge it because you're adding that milk and you've whipped the butter. But I'm not having to drag my spatula through there. And in fact, if I just smooth it out, it's perfect. That's the texture that we're looking for. So for our last one, but it holds itself, you can see on here. So for our last one then is my last 50 grams of icing sugar, which is not that much. There we go. And I'm going to put the clip back on there because stuff gets everywhere. This also is the nicer way of it not getting everywhere and things. And then I'm going to add in my Oreo crumbs. And remember, they're a nice, fine, sandy texture. No big lumps, because if I've got big lumps, I'm not going to get those through the piping nozzle. We should keep that on. And I'm just going to add a last tablespoon of milk. If you want to be decadent, you can add double cream. It's very decadent. Right, we're nearly there, and they're nearly there. Oh wow, they've just popped up. Give it that final mix through. Oops. And I'm just gonna get rid of that on there into the bowl, so that gets all chance to mix through as well. Oh, it must be raining because Ian's just gone to bring the washing in. And that's just going to go through. Thank you if you're new from YouTube for hitting the bell, subscribed, a new watcher. Lovely to meet you. So this is just whipping through there. Cupcakes are nearly ready. I'm just going to take that off. We're going to give it a straight down so we get everything nicely combined, and then we're going to check on our cupcakes. I'm feeling that now when I was just scraping. There we go. I'm just going to leave that whilst we check on these. Now when you take them out, you're looking for them to spring back up when you press down on them. They definitely are not springing back up, so I'm going to put them in for another few minutes. They're not going to need a huge amount of time, but I'm going to go for 5 minutes, and we can make our bats as well in that meantime. Great. So they are just having a few more minutes because they didn't feel spongy as so much as just very spongy. I don't think that really helps describe it to it. Basically, when I put my finger on them, the tops didn't pop back up. That's what you're looking for, that you indent and they come back up. Oreo buttercream is one of my favourites. Let's give this a scrape down and I can show you. So we did have quite a lot of Oreos in there, and you've got a nice Oreo look and feel there. So it's like a light brown, and it's got this speckle of those Oreo crumbs, and it's got the cream from the cookies in there as well. So whilst my cakes finish off and then cool down, we're going to, a little bit escaped. Oh, so good. Make our Oreo bats. Now, I've just thought I should have told you in the recipe instructions, it does use unsalted butter with a pinch of sea salt. That's what I was intending on using, but I only had slightly salted butter in this morning, which is last night when I got it out, which is why I've not added any extra salt to that. So here we go then with our little guys. We'll pick those up in a moment, see how they're doing. But we're going to make some more bats. I made a few last night. I've got 5 here. I've got 9 cakes in the oven, so I'm going to need another 4, obviously. And I'm going to show you how to make them. I mean, even my mum said they're seriously cute. I mean, look. Whee! So I'm just going to check the camera's not about to go into sleep mode for you guys. Whew, it's warm with the oven on, and it's been warm the last couple of days. So then let's just get rid of those Oreos. I've got a few normal regular Oreos left, and like I say, you can do these with any like cookies and cream biscuit. So we've got the ones from Aldi as well. But for our bats, how many do I need? How many have said? 5. I've got 9. So I need another 4. So I've got 4 Oreos left in here. Let's get rid of that. These will be my bodies then. There we go. And I need some wings. Now, the wings are made from 1 Oreo split in half. So you'll want, for each 2, you'll need an Oreo for the wings. So I'm thinking we need 1 there and 1 there. And we're gonna mix these up a bit. We're going to be using the Aldi version for our wings. And we're going to get a sharp knife. You can do this by hand as well, but we want to cut these wings so they don't break up. Actually, I will demonstrate. That's going to ping again in a minute. So, should we just, in 50 seconds it's going to ping. So I'm just going to check these in case they need to go on a little bit longer before we get stuck. So when I push down, they spring back up, almost. That needs probably the 45 plus another minute it's got left. So 2 minutes. 2 minutes on those. And then I'm going to say, it depends on your oven. It depends on your ingredient temperature. It depends just on the day to day. So they're taking a little bit longer than I expected, but they're not overbaked. They've not gone hard or crunchy or anything like that. It's that top is just not slightly springy enough, but that'll be fine. So back to our owls, our bats. I mean, you could do these with owls. You could get the golden Oreos and make little owls, but we're making bats. And the easiest way to do it is, if you're doing this with the kids, is just to twist them. That's what they say, isn't it? Twist them apart. And then keep your tops and your bottoms together. So I'm just going to, this is the one I'm going to show you about cutting the wings up. And I'll just sit them like that. There we go. Now, that's going to ping again in a minute. We need to get some chocolate in the microwave as well, which we'll all do at the same time. So when we're making our wings, that thing is going to beep. When you're making your wings, you will want to scrape off the cream of your Oreo. Eat it if you want to. Because it just helps with our wings. And the one thing you don't want to do is, if you're doing it with the kids, they can probably just, let's try it. You can break your wings so you get these little edgy bits to it. There we go. On time, perfect cued. Perfect. That last minute and 45 was all they needed just to finish off. So let's get these out. You see, they've got a nice dome on them, but not too big. They've not puffed up like mountains in the middle, but that's fine because we're going to ice around anything like that. So don't worry about them. You can level them off. These are going to cool. Now I'm going to whip them out. I'd leave them normally in the tin to cool for like 10 minutes, but I would like to try and ice one for you. So I'm just going to hot asbestos fingers. Oh. Let's leave them to cool. Let's go back to our bat wings. So yes, you can either split them in half and get lovely little funky edges, or you can cut them. If you're cutting them, what you don't want to do is just go straight down. I'll do it on one of these, because if you go straight down, you will end up with a shattered biscuit because you're putting that pressure on the Oreo. So good. So what you want to do is just with a sharp knife, and if you've got kids, you can do this with a blunt knife as well, but you just sawing backwards and forwards until the biscuit breaks, and you get a lovely, you probably can't see it on the camera, but you get a lovely sharp edge. So it depends really how you'd like your wings to be. So I'm going to split open. You can eat the cream that you scrape off with any of the biscuits that don't quite go to plan. There we go. So I'm just gonna, there's one. I just looked at that then and thought, my maths today is shocking. 2, got the one from the demo. 3. And we've got one left over, which, you know, we could make a serious Oreo restack on that. Oh, Louise. There we go. Super stuffed Oreo. So we've now got our bodies. There's a few crumbs around, but hey, that's fine. We've got our bodies and we've got our wings. Now to assemble this all together, what you need is some melted chocolate, and you only need a little bit of melted chocolate. So if you've got some chocolate in the cupboard, you can just use a couple of squares. And that's pretty much what I did yesterday. But I melted a little bit more because I knew I'd be adding some in today. But I'm just going to add, let's come straight out of the fridge. So this is not, a little bit more. Let's turn the microwave on. You can use chocolate drops as well, chocolate trips. I'm just going to put some in there. Just a few more. And we're going to pop these in a small microwave bowl, and we're going to put them on full blast for 30 seconds. And then mix it through. The same as always when you're melting chocolate, this does not want to go on to max. We'll have to do that oven juggle again. You can go back in there. There we go. Max for 30 seconds. We don't want our chocolate to split. We don't want it to burn. We want to take it till it's almost melted. And that's why we do it in the 30-second box. When we did the chocolate for the cheesecake last week, we did it on the hob because we wanted a little bit more control. So with this, you can then use either a palette knife, or if you want it to be really professional, a piping bag and a small nozzle. But we're just going to use a palette knife. If you don't want to use chocolate for this, you could use a little bit of icing mixed with some water. So it's like a thick paste, but I find the chocolate sets a little bit better. That's started to melt all that up. Let's just give it a mix. Might take 1, maybe 2 rounds in the microwave. I am still here if you... But be careful not to take it over because it will just thing. Whilst that's doing its last 30 seconds, I'm going to be using these. These are sprinkly eyes. You can get them online. You can get them on Amazon. You can also get them in the supermarkets as well. If you don't want to, you could use some, or you can't find them, you could use some sugar paste, white sugar paste, a little bit of black sugar paste, and make the eyes together. Or you could just use some sugar pearls or something just for the eyes there. Let's see how that is. Bit like I say, a bit like when we do normal chocolate work, you want to take it to a point where it's melted, but it's not too melted. That probably needs 20 seconds. Doesn't need a lot, it just makes it a little easy. One day I'm going to rip my dress on this oven. Start. I'm not going to quite do that full 30. There we go. Yeah, so these are little eyes, little sprinkly eyes. These ones unfortunately came and they're all stuck together. So you want 2 for each bat. Oh, I think we've just got enough. I'm just going to set them out. There we go. There's our... I've got 1 eye spare. We could have a 3-eyed bat, like a 3-eyed raven, if anybody watches Game of Thrones. And our chocolate is perfect. It's nice and melted. I'm just going to give that a stir through. What time are we at? Cool. So... with your spatula, then just a little bit of icing on the side that you're putting the wings. Get it on. You can dribble a little bit. No chunks of chocolate, please, Louise. Make sure you put enough on that it's got something to stick to. Otherwise they will fall apart. Just going to move my bodies down. So then with our wings, we want to put them on top of our melted chocolate. So they just touch and push down a little bit into the cream. You've left the Oreo cream on. And we'll do that with all of them. Like a little production line. And so make sure you push down into the cream and into that chocolate, because when the chocolate sets, it will hold everything together. We'll then want a little bit more chocolate just on the join on the top, but enough so we can stick our lids to. Our lids, is a lid on the other side of the biscuit, and then I'm going to put them on. And if you're pedantic or OCD like me, you'd make sure the Oreo, if you're using an Oreo, is the right way up. Push down again. It gives another point of contact just to get everything held together. And Oreo. Oh, don't push too hard though, because you might break them. Oh dear. That one's the 9th one. Oops. Chocolate thing is there. The sun's come back out now. It stopped raining. And then for our eyes, again, just a little bit of chocolate dribble. We'll just stick them there. Try not to get chocolate on your fingers, and then just stick our eyes into that melted chocolate. I don't worry about if it sticks out top. It looks like it gives them some evil eyebrows. I don't think bats have eyebrows, but you know what I mean. If you're using a sugar paste or you're using an icing, you could also you could do it with the chocolate as well. Put some little fangs on them. And you can also do this as spiders. Obviously, we're not making wings, but you could use like some matchmakers or some licorice laces or something. Again, take them apart, lay the others in, a little bit of chocolate, and seal it all back together. So I'm not going to pick them up because they're not set, and there's lots of crumbs. But these are, see how simple is that? I told you these were really easy Halloween bats. And they are there. They're ready to go when they're set. Best thing is to leave them to set so they're a bit more sturdy like these guys are putting on. So thank you for sticking with me so far. We're going to do the last bit, and hopefully we've got a cupcake we can ice. I'm just going to pop that there. You see them putting like their bakes and stuff in the fridge on Bake Off, and you can do that to help cool them down quickly. But remember, you've got other things in there. If you put something warm in your fridge, you're going to raise that temperature. So this is why we don't do it on Kitchen Live. I do like to try and get something that's cool. But when it's almost cool, you could probably do that. So that's almost cool. This is our spare one. It's got no Oreo in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop this in the freezer whilst we do this. I just get the piping bag ready just to do that final cool down. It is not hot, so it'll be perfectly fine, but it will just help. So chocolate everywhere. This is Halloween. Sorry, I won't sing for you. You don't want that. For decorating, then we are going to be using. I'm going to be using a piping bag and what we call a French tip nozzle, which is this one. It's got all the little spiky bits at the end, and a piping bag. You don't have to. You can just palette it straight on with a palette knife if you want. Give it a good smooth over. But what I'm going to do for these is I'm going to do a big swirl of icing around the outside, put some sprinkles, and then I've got marshmallow fluff. I'm thinking I might just put that in the middle. We shall see. We shall see. But let's get our bag and nozzle sorted. If you use a bag, these are recyclable plastic ones. It's easier. They don't get so greasy. But when you're adding your nozzle in, if you're not using a coupler, one of them things where you see it's like a white collar, when you pop the nozzle in, you want the bag to come up to about halfway of that nozzle. If it's too close to the edge, you can squeeze it and it can get in the way, and you don't get the shape you want. If it's too close to this top edge, then if you squeeze it and your buttercream isn't that nice smooth consistency, it will pop out. So I ordered the wrong size bags when I did an order, which is why we've got these smaller ones. I can't wait to get back to a slightly bigger bag. These are 12-inch. To fill your bag, what I find is use a glass. Be very careful, or something plastic that you can put your piping bag in and stand it up in. like that. It just leaves you hands-free to deal with your buttercream. So, which has been, like I say, we whipped this up. It's nice. When I look at it, it's nice and whipped. And it's easy. You can see I could just scrape it off there. I'm going to fill my bag up. I'm trying to be so good as well. I really want one of these. Gonna have to have a treat. Gonna have to have half of one today, half it tomorrow. And then pull your piping bag up around the top. Now, our buttercream is nice and smooth, so it's easy to manipulate it. If your buttercream is quite thick, you could use a palette knife, a smoother, or something like this, a bread scraper, and pop your bag on the side and scrape everything down into the main part of the bag. Remember, don't scrape too much because it's going to come flying out the end. But this is ready. Let's get our cupcake. Here, now, how can I pipe this so you guys can see? Does that help? Maybe, maybe not. When I pipe them, you see lots of people different piping, and it's really whatever's comfortable with you. This is why I like a slightly bigger bag. Like I say, these are small, but as I twist the end, you can clamp it if you want. And I sit my piping bag between my thumb and my finger, so it sits in the palm of my hand. And the reason I do this is then I can apply the pressure from the top to all of my buttercream underneath, which is going to move the whole column of buttercream. I can still use this hand to guide and squeeze a little bit if I want. If I grab my piping bag like this and hold it like this and try and pipe by squeezing with this hand, this is going to go this way, and the only thing that's going to come out the bottom is this, and the only other thing you're going to do is make a mess and get it everywhere. So twist your top with your hand over the sort of that bit, and this hand to guide. You can squeeze and do your swirl. Now, we won't go into sort of decorating cupcakes with lots of different swirls, but if you want to do a classic swirl, start at the outside and come in, building up and finish. But we're going to do a big swirl round and then one on top of the other. So it's almost like a stack. And then I'm thinking we're going to put the fluff in the middle. So don't have your cupcake too close to it, the piping nozzle too close to the cupcake, because then there's no space for it to come out. Give it a centimetre or so above. Start at one side as close to the edge of the cake you have, and then follow it around, keeping that even pressure from the top. So I haven't iced a cupcake in a little while, so this would be interesting. So, and because our butter is nice and smooth, it will come out easily. So you see, I've just started to apply a little bit of pressure there. And to finish, just release the pressure and remove the bag. You can then pop your piping bag back into your glass whilst you sort things out. But that is our cupcake. Now, I was thinking about dipping it in some sprinkles, and you can sprinkle around the edge. Not sure at the moment. So what I am going to do is I'm going to put some of that in. I'm just going to get a plate to stand it on so I can do the sprinkles. But let's get one done, and then I can let you guys back to your Sunday. I did get some spoons out. I remember I did. What did I do with them? There they are. So you could fill this with some chocolate sauce or whatever. You don't even have to, but I bought the fluff and I thought, oh, do you know what? That might be quite nice. So I'm just going to take a spoonful of the fluff. If that. And push that in to the top. It is so sticky. Not overly convinced about that, but hey. There we go. I might not do that then. I'm going to take some of my hundreds and thousands, my black and white ones. Again, this is entirely up to you. Just do a little sprinkle over the buttercream there. And then one of my bats that I did the other day, last night. Which one? Let's go with this one. This little dude here. And I'm just going to pop him on. And there we have him. He's got a few sprinkles. He's got a little bit of a fluff in the middle. But that is our Halloween Bat Oreo cupcake with our Oreo base, buttercream, and our bat. I mean, it's taken me an hour and a quarter, but I have talked you through every step of this. So it will be quicker if you're doing it at home. Depends how much mesh you make. Just thought I might add a few more sprinkles onto the front of him there. Doing this on a plate so it collects it. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Have a lovely weekend. If people are logging off now, next week we are going to be doing brownie cookie sandwiches. And thinking for bonfire night what we can do to get everything sort of nice and yummy and something you could hold in your hand. Bonfire night if you're in the UK, it's the 5th of November where we celebrate a plot to blow up Parliament. Oh dear, yeah, we won't get political there. But yes, if you're dipping off now, thank you very much for joining me for another Kitchen Live on a Sunday morning. I'm gonna sit here with this little guy. We're just gonna rattle through on a little bit of a recap. And yeah, so as always, my machine doesn't work. We have been making, I'm going to get that right one of these days. We've been making an Oreo Bat Halloween cupcake. This little dude. I did a half recipe and I've come out with 9 cupcakes. So if you do the full recipe, I say it's about 12 to 16, but you might even be getting like 18, 20. But if you go in the region of thinking of 12 to 16 cupcakes, you'll be fine. Absolutely fine. We've got that classic cookies and cream flavor with the chocolate cupcake, with all the Oreos in there, the Oreos in the base. We've got the Oreo buttercream, and then we've got the Oreo bat. And I've added a little bit of marshmallow fluff in there. They are really easy to make. Just take those steps. They are so simple. The cupcake batter is a case of mixing everything together. If you really want to, you can do it as an all-in-one. Just chuck it in and turn the mixer on. I do like to do it a little bit more in those steps. It makes it a little bit more light, fluffy, airy, especially with the buttercream. It gives you that really whipped, lovely texture. And they're really good to do with the kids. Like I say, the bats, and if you're doing this, if you've got an adult present, they can help with making the cake as well. The buttercream's a little bit, they can do that. You know what? Just be prepared for a mess. When I've done it with kids before, be prepared for a mess on the buttercream. Cons-wise is, do you really want to share this guy with anyone? Really? Do you want to share him with your trick-or-treaters? I don't know. He's too cute. Maybe I should. So that's the recipe overview. And let's just do a quick rundown of my ingredients. I need to get this touch thing sorted so we can quickly move between screens. But we've used unsalted butter with a pinch of fine sea salt. I, however, did use slightly salted for this, but you can use either. Remember, there's a whole post about salted, unsalted butter on the website. We've used just a white caster sugar, no brown sugars or golden caster sugars here, because we just want to have that undivided attention on the Oreos and the cookies and cream taste. Some eggs, 4 medium eggs at room temperature. We've used a little bit of the vanilla extract. We've used self-raising flour here with a pinch of baking powder in it. You can use plain or all-purpose flour with more baking powder in there as the rising agent, and I'll put those information into the blog post. We've also used Oreos, lots of Oreos. We've got Oreos in the cake, in the base, in the buttercream, in the bats, everywhere. So Oreos are expensive. So if you want to, you can do a budget-friendly version and get the ones from the supermarkets. I think these Aldi ones are like 45p, maybe a little bit more, compared to like a pound for a pound for a packet of Oreos. So if you are trying to do it on a budget, go and get the supermarket dupes. They're just as good, but and taste just as great. So, and they work just as well. We've got some icing sugar, obviously, for our buttercream, and we've got a little bit of chocolate to melt to bring all our guys together, and some sprinkles and some treats if you want to. I mean, I've got a bag of Halloween Percy pigs that I thought I might get on there as well, but there's no room for them. So I'm just going to have to eat them. Equipment wise, really super simple. Your cupcake pan, remember that's the deep one, not a fairy cake one or a Yorkshire pudding tin, which are really shallow because your cakes will just spread out rather than go up. And we're looking for this nice height on those. Baking parchment, I was thinking that I might have leveled off the buttercream, smoothed that off, and then rolled in the sprinkles, which we haven't done. So ignore that one. A mini chopper or food processor for chopping up your cookies to go in your mixtures. Hand mixer and a large mixing bowl or a stand mixer. I really urge, if you've got a and all the usual accoutrements, our spatulas, an angled palette knife for doing the chocolate, and a piping bag and nozzle for our buttercream. Most of it you probably have in the cupboard. If you haven't got a piping bag and nozzle, you can use a palette knife, spoon it on, or kitchen hack. If you've got a large freezer bag, put the buttercream in there, turn it on to the corner, snip the corner off, and you can use that as a piping bag as well, if you're desperate. But yes, so the cupcakes will keep then for a 3 days, really is their freshest that you want to keep them for. At room temperature in an airtight container. You can keep them in the fridge and they will last a little bit longer, but you want them to come up to room temperature before you eat them because they'll be solid. You can freeze them. You can freeze them not decorated, you freeze them iced, but I do recommend if you're going to freeze them, just freeze them straight like this once they've cooled down, put them in a sealable bag, and then you can take them out when you want, especially if you've made a big batch and you don't need all of those. The buttercream, again, if you've got some left over, we'll keep in the fridge for about a week in a sealed container, but you can also freeze it, again, in a sealed container, freeze it, label up so you know what it is, because you look at it and go, what's that? And it'll keep in the freezer for like up to 3 months. And I've got buttercreams in there that I'll pick out and will use and stuff and odds and sods. I just put them in a takeaway container and it works really well, but you can keep it in the freezer for up to 3 months and just defrost it. So there we go. If you want to, you can turn this mixture into a layer cake. It will work in an 8-inch cake tin or sandwich tins as well. But you will find, forgot, down there, the recipe for the Oreo cupcakes is on the website, and the Oreo buttercream is already on the website. I've just added some cocoa powder into that to give it this deeper, darker Halloween feel. So you can go and find the recipe already, but I will be popping the recipe up, the full recipe for these and how to make the bats. It will be up on the site tomorrow. And yeah, that'll be it. I will let you know, as always, when it works. But thank you, Suzanne. I hope you are well. I haven't spoken to you for ages. I hope you are really well. But thank you so much, as always, to everybody that's commented on Facebook and YouTube, people that have subscribed as well. So glad you've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for spending your Sunday morning with me. And this little guy, I think he needs a name. I will have to think of a name of him. But we are now going to tidy up the mess that you can't see. This is the worst bit of it. And I'm going to have a sit down, a cup of coffee. We're going to put these guys in for their photo shoot, and I'll be writing up the blog post as well. We went for a really lovely walk yesterday. I'm hoping it's going to hold out for one today as well. But wherever you are in the world, I hope that you're safe. Well, please take care of yourself. And I thank you again for joining me. I will see you next week when we will be making, I got it right that time, brownie cookie sandwiches. They are as amazing as they sound. I will see you then. Have a fabulous week. Enjoy your Halloween. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.